Welcome back to 12 in Our Schools. I'm Brian Jenkins. We're talking about the state of our schools with some of the folks who have the very tough job of running those schools. We're coming off of the report, the New Jersey report on schools that had some dismal news to talk about, and the response to that report from a lot of folks who have kids in New Jersey schools was not pretty. Let's take a look at some of the comments that folks posted on their blogs. From Biggin23, I'm tired of paying nearly $8,000 per year in school taxes to see that our education system is failing. We'll go on to some other folks who wrote in. People Roan 1C. New Jersey should feel ashamed of its report card. How do we expect our children to succeed if we are not preparing them properly for success? And I think we've got one other from Valley Girl. How can they train students for the future when they're still using a 1950s model for teaching? Stop all the waivers for teachers who are not certified. And finally, this last comment from Valley Girl. None of the above will be done because it will break the cycle of political patronage and abuse. All right, some very tough comments there, doctors. Let me ask you your response to those.
Well, those are typical responses. One of the things I know from an annual Gallup poll that the public always rates the schools that their kids go to well, but schools in general don't get such a good grade. And I think that reflects their knowledge and familiarity with what's occurring. And of course, here in New Jersey, as with many other states, but particularly the conversation about the cost of education, the tax burden, the way schools are funded, certainly causes those kinds of reactions, and the report card is a great tool. It brings information to the communities about how their schools are performing, about how schools statewide are performing, and that's a great place to be because we really need to look at data. We don't want to work on myths, we want to work on facts, and when we can look at the data, we can plan a course for improvement and engage our communities in how to do that better.
Does it perhaps unfairly paint you guys as the bad guys?
Well, let me talk to that a little bit. You know, whoever's in charge is responsible. You know, there's the old saying, if it goes wrong, I'm a responsible person. I've got to take care of it. And school superintendents, they don't hide from that responsibility or they never would have taken the job. And they have a very difficult but important task of guiding their community to support the kinds of things that they need to get improved achievement. You know, we're talking about, as the one blogger mentioned, we have to prepare our students for the world that's ahead of them. It's a world that's very different that we grew up in, and we have to then prepare them to be problem solvers, to be able to look at things in new and different ways, to use technology to accomplish the kinds of tasks that just weren't part of our lifetime.
Right.
And so superintendents stand up to that challenge. It's not an easy challenge. It's not easy when you have to get everybody on the same side working toward it to contribute the resources. And so they really do work at that, you know, 24/7, 365 a year. And they're people who really are very brave and courageous in many respects. And so they have to stand up to the criticism and answer it.
Well, let me throw this out to you, Dr. Parker. Do you take that when you guys have a career of 20, 30 years of having developed some things that really worked, and then you find yourself in a position where, wow, I've got to really make some serious changes to what I've been doing. How difficult is that process for you?
Well, I think that's one of the key skills of the superintendent, because as conditions change, we have to change what we do. But our priority is always student achievement, raising student achievement. And some of the startling, there's some things that are startling about the blogs, because the National Assessment of Educational Process, which is a national test, not just a test of New Jersey, but a national test, showed remarkable changes among some of our lowest achieving students in the state. African American students went from 24th, ranked 24th in the United States in New Jersey, up to 4th in the last several years, which is a huge achievement, and is a testament to the work of superintendents and the work of really school districts, teachers, parents joining together, and especially the impact of additional funding that has gone into students with low incomes and where there have been long-term situations of racism and poverty. So school superintendents make a huge change, bringing people together to take on very, very challenging topics.
You talk about that challenge. You have Governor Corzine right now trying to weigh what the court has ordered with respect to the Abbott School funding against what the rest of the state is saying, well, look, you know, this is an unfair distribution of money. And you guys are kind of stuck in the middle of that. How do you weigh those competing interests?
Well, you know, that's an interesting point. Those kind of challenges are going on in the states across the country, and New Jersey, unfortunately, has been at the lead in that kind of a challenge. And one of the things that I think any prudent business practice would be is, do you know the resources you have? Can you make a 3 to 5 year plan? And when we talk about the operation of schools, it's really, even though we are required and seek to develop those plans, they're really annual plans because we're not quite sure what the resources are going to be in order to fund those things and to look forward and to hold folks accountable, school boards, school superintendents, all the staff to their community. So it's a difficult challenge.
You talk about resources. I want to talk about this. There's a court case going on right now that has come out of the news of the Kingsburg superintendent who retired with the, I think it was $740,000 severance package, which a lot of people sat back and said, what? And so the governor responded accordingly, and the court has responded, and I believe your association challenged the court's ruling. What's the status of that? I mean, they're saying you guys are overpaid, underworked, and you guys are saying, well, you don't understand what we do.
Well, let's set some of the facts straight. There are a lot of myths about school administration. When we take a look at the percent of the dollar that's spent on school administration and we compare it to the 50 states and the District of Columbia, with one being the highest, New Jersey ranks 41st lowest in the percentage of the dollar on school administration. If we take a look at the history of enrollments and teacher growth, the Department of Education has information for a 16-year period ending in 2005. And during that period of time, student population grew about 30%, well over 300,000 students. Teachers grew 47%, about 37,000 more teachers than were there. Support staff, about 50%. And during that same period of time, we increased administrators, supervisors, and principals less than 3%, or just over 200 folks. So we're asking those people to do a lot more today with fewer resources and a lot more that's required. So
you're saying the average $125,000 a year salary is justified?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you why. When we take a look at this, one of the things that we would hope to promote in working with our governor, with our legislature, with our commissioner, with all of the organizations, is that we get great leadership in the places particularly that need the leadership the most. We're not talking about a state issue here. What we are talking about is a regional issue. We have about 20% turnover in school superintendents annually, and about 50% will leave the position over the next 5 years or so. And so that's not just a New Jersey issue, but it's a national issue, and superintendents really now are regional players. You know, they go from state to state, and if New Jersey is serious about, and we know the importance, by the way, research is clear about the importance of good school leadership. We need to get great leaders in great places, and clearly compensation is one of those issues.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back, talk more with our school administrators in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to 12 in Our Schools. We're talking about efforts to improve those hallowed halls of learning, and two of the gentlemen who lead those schools and the superintendents of groups that make a lot of important decisions about what happens in the schools. Let me ask you this. You've just got a little time left. Where do we go in the next decade? I mean, a lot of what you guys do is not just decisions today, but over a course of 5 or 10 years that your policies will impact these things. So looking at it from that perspective, where do we go in the next 5 to 10 years? What are the biggest priorities for you guys?
Well, I think the biggest priority for school superintendents and for school systems are, what are the right standards for kids? What is it that we want them to be able to do? And then obviously right after that, the overriding concern of, how do we get control of the resources that we need, and how do we do that in an economy where we're not going back to the taxpayer and saying it's just more, it's just more. And so we have to work collaboratively with our elected officials, with our governor, with our local communities to say, what is it that we can do together to really focus not only our focus on instruction and outcomes, but our focus on resources? How do we get the things that don't seem to be controllable as we pare down school budgets and we get to the things that are responsive, heat, transportation, electricity.
Well, when you talk about resources, and let me throw this out to you, Dr. Parker, how much of this will involve private business? Because, you know, the state can only do so much. Do you see that?
I think it's interesting that you mentioned private business, because we really have to prepare our students for a new era. Rapid economic changes, rapid political changes, rapid cultural changes. And one of the very interesting things that I think is happening in Summit at the present time is we're really looking at the whole topic of media literacy. How do you produce media? How do you consume media? When are things being honestly portrayed? When are they being dishonestly portrayed? How does it influence behavior? And this is sort of an exciting, far-reaching notion as we think about what students need to know and to be able to do really for the 21st century.
All right, we're going to end it there. We're out of time. Great discussion. We'll hope to have you guys again soon. That's our show. I'm Brian Jenkins. Until next week, remember, knowledge is power. We'll see you.